So basically, so can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So basically, we'll start today's tutorial with a slightly covering a new topic, not exactly new, but we'll be doing the analysis for randomized quicksort at first. So Saurabh told me that it has not been covered in the class yet. So let me just cover this first, and then we'll look into the problems and all. Sure? Okay. So let us first recall like what is the kind of the algorithm. So more or less the algorithm is kind of this. So if like cardinality of s equal to 1, like you return s, and so just give me a few moments, let me just write it, then I'll probably explain it. Yeah, so quicksort has been told, right? Quicksort has been covered, right? Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, quicksort has been covered, right?
The thing is, could you please cover that a bit quickly, like quick sort as well, so that it'll be a good revision for us, please. Only if it's fine.
Yeah, so the idea of the quicksort is very simple. So suppose for example, suppose we are given a list of numbers x1 to xn, and for the simplicity let's assume that all xi's are distinct, right?
Mhm.
And the idea is to output the elements of s in a sorted order, right? So roughly the algorithm is like this. So if the size of the list is only 1, right, then there is no point doing sorting and all, so we just return s, right? Otherwise we choose a pivot x from s and kind of divide this whole s into two parts: the set of elements that are less than x, less than the pivot, or the set of elements that are greater than the pivot, right? So so from s we choose a pivot x, and based on this pivot x we basically break s into two parts, s1 and s2, right? Then we recursively sort s1 as well as s2, and then we output s1, thereafter x, and thereafter s2. Since s1 is promised to be less than or less than x, the elements of s1 is promised to be less than x, and the elements of s2 are promised to be more than x, so this will be kind of the output. This is more or less the idea, right?
Sir,
Yeah.
Sir, how to choose the pivot element?
Yeah, let me just come one after another. Yeah, so the issue is like, this is a very simple algorithm, except the fact that we have not said how to choose this pivot and all, right? This is the tricky part, right? Tricky. Now let us first, as somebody has told to revise it, so let us first try some obvious choices of pivot. So assume that we choose, so case one, so this is all this pivot choosing techniques. So in case one, we'll choose always the first element of the list, right? So given any list S, say these are the elements, so we are always choosing the first element as the pivot, right? And based on this X, based on this value of the pivot, so we'll be like dividing S into S1 and S2 and then recursively doing it, right? Now, although this procedure is very simple, like choosing the first element as a pivot and all, there is a small catch. The catch is, suppose you get an input that is like reversely sorted. What happens when it is reversely sorted, right? By sorted, I mean ascending order sorting. Okay. So reversely sorted is like decreasing. So say it is like n minus 1, n minus 2, n minus 3 and 1, right? There are n elements. This is the S. So in the first iteration, we choose n to be the pivot. This is our X. Now we had to compare every elements, right? Now note, because of this pivot n, our S1, the set of all elements that are less than X, has cardinality n minus 1, right? And size of S2 is basically 0 because it is the largest element, right? So basically in the second step, whenever we are doing recursively sorting S1, then still we have to do, again there will be a list. So what will be the S1 here? So S1 would be this part, right? And then I will choose again this as a pivot. Then again we have to compare n minus 2, right? For this pivot I have to compare n minus 1 elements, right? But for this pivot I have to compare n minus 2, and similarly it will go on. So it will be like sum of first n elements. So let me just give a new page. Yeah, so basically for reversely sorted, so whenever I am picking like first element as pivot, we need number of comparisons is like order of n square, because in the first iteration I have to compare n minus 1 elements to X, then n minus 2, and similarly 1. This will be like order n square, right? Is this okay?
Yeah.
So if there is any doubt, please feel free to shout out. I mean, this is a tutorial and we are kind of informal, so there's no worry. If somebody doesn't understand anything, please feel free to ask. Okay. And so this is the case when we pick first element as a pivot. And in this case, the hard distribution, the distribution that takes maximum number of comparisons, is this reversely sorted input, right? Now again, as somebody can guess, the second option would be picking the last element as a pivot, right? Now again, there will be a hard distribution, which is ascending order sorted, right? You can work this out, but it will also give the same kind of idea, like at every point one sublist would be size 0. So basically, essentially, we are doing actually comparing all possible pairs, more or less, in order wise. And in that case, it also gives kind of order of n square. Number of comparisons would be order of n square. So a natural idea is to like, can this be improved? Can we somehow more intelligently choose pivot such that the number of comparisons is small? Is the question clear? The question is, can we pick pivot such that number of comparisons is little of n square? Can we somehow pick this pivot, maybe by some more intelligent way, right? Now, one thing to note, whatever we are actually doing is can be summarized as follows. So initially, we have a list S, and somehow, if we can pick a pivot somewhere in the middle, say this is the pivot. So originally, size of S was n, say this is 1 to n. Now, if we somehow suppose there is a genie and that comes to us and say, let's pick the pivot as X, and the genie guarantees that it breaks the list S into almost two equal size parts, right? So S, this will be S1 and this will be S2, and more or less like S1 equal to S2, kind of more or less order wise. I mean, it will be close to like n by 2, right? So in that case, what will be our time complexity? So time complexity would be the idea to compare this. So basically, what will be the case? We have to recursively sort both these two sublists. Each takes t of n by 2. And also we are comparing some non-trivial amount. So this will be some c of n kind of thing. And if you work this out, maybe using free method or like standard master's theorem, this actually indeed comes out to be n log n, right? And we already know the lower bound for comparison based sorting is actually omega n log n. So basically we are kind of getting a algorithm that is as best as it can be, right? Right? Is this part of
So yeah. So until this, I could get. Can you please? So here you wrote O of n log n, right? Can you just tell us how to solve this T1, 2T? Like yeah, how do we solve that and get to O of n log n?
nah? So this can be done by tree method. So by dividing into trees and all. So did you cover this? I think this has been covered in DMath course, discrete math course. So a standard way to do this is like guessing an example and working it out over induction, or like breaking it the whole thing into tree and all. Or also equivalently, if you just want to verify, you can use something called Master's theorem.
Master's theorem.
Yeah, I think you can look it up and maybe ask some of your friends. I mean,
Sure.
did you attend this DMath course, discrete math course?
Yeah. I mean, I was in CRS, but
But this is a very common technique of solving these recurrence relations and all.
no, I'll check it out, sir. I'll check it out. Thank
Solving
you.
recurrence relations. And there are a couple of standard techniques, and this is not actually a very tricky thing. And maybe you can have a look at it, and if something is not clear, maybe you can post it in the classroom and maybe we'll have a look at it. Sure? Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. I'll check it out. If I don't get it, I'll again ask you in the tutorial. But thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. No problem. So basically the idea is like, so if somehow, suppose there exists a genie that somehow gives us the best pivot, we can actually obtain the optimal bound, right? So the lower bound for comparison based sorting is n log n, and we are actually getting an algorithm of n log n, which is also the case for say merge sort as well. So like this is the as best as it can be, right? So is this okay till now? Are you convinced like if we can find a pivot that actually kind of breaks the original list into almost two equal half size lists, sublist, then we actually indeed get almost an optimal bound, I mean ignoring constant factors. So is this okay? Hello?
This is okay.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, as it turns out, this n log n thing actually also holds even when like not, suppose s1 and s2 are not exactly n by 2, but suppose s1 and s2 are kind of constant factor of each other. So this analysis, if you work it out also, so this analysis and this bound n log n actually also works when cardinality of s1 and s2 are constant factor of each other. So in that case, basically what will be the kind of this recurrence relation? Recurrence relation would be like T of C of n plus T of 1 minus C of n plus some theta of n, and it will actually give this T of n equal to n log n. Okay, so actually this gives us a very good bound. So actually the whole question now becomes, can we somehow find a pivot that kind of roughly equally divides the original list into two sublists of almost equal size? So this is actually the whole idea of this quicksort actually boils down to this fact that how can we find a pivot that almost equally breaks the original list into two parts, right? This is the goal. So everything actually boils down to this fact, right? This is okay. If not, I can certainly I can certainly say it again and again. So there is no problem. And so if it is not clear, please feel free to ask. Yeah, just shout out. Yeah. Okay. So if nobody has any problem, let me just progress a bit further, and let's see what happens for randomized quicksort, right? Right. Now, as the algorithm becomes randomized, now there are two possibilities from where this randomness actually comes. So one possibility is the algorithm is itself random, or another possibility is like the algorithm is deterministic, but the input is like random. So what do you mean by that? So given any list, so suppose we are given a list S such that cardinality of S is n. Now how do we make this as a random? So there are n factorial number of permutations here, right? So you pick any permutation, some sigma belongs to this n factorial, set of permutations. So this will be Sn. So set of all permutations would be Sn. So you pick any permutation randomly from this and apply that on to say S, our list. Okay. And in that case, the input will be random. Right. So this is a case where the algorithm is deterministic, but the input is random. And another case is like algorithm is itself random. So what do we mean by random? So as most of you probably have guessed, so the randomness lies in the picking the pivot. We pick the pivot element randomly. Okay. And as it turns out, both the complexities are same, and even the analysis in both these two cases are kind of same. And I'll just cover this analysis because I kind of like this, but that's a personal choice. But you can actually look it out, and the analysis is extremely similar even in this case, right? So basically, what we want to do, so we want to analyze a quicksort algorithm where we pick the random, where we pick the pivot as random, right? So let's go back to our algorithm. And also, can you see my screen? Hello, is the connection?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, if nobody is saying anything, I'm not sure whether the connection is there or not. And there is this issue with Zoom that if the connection is lost, maybe we won't be immediately informed. So yeah, let's just move on. So these are our original algorithm of quicksort, and this is the crucial step of choosing pivot. So the algorithm that we are going to analyze now actually chooses a pivot X randomly from S and does all other steps deterministically, right? So actually, for recursively sorting, we also have to do again a random pivot picking and all. But the issue is like the fact that I want to stress upon is that we only choose pivot randomly. So there is only randomness involved in choosing pivot. So whatever calculations we are doing and all this, so we'll be doing it via as it is customary for the case of randomized algorithm. So we will be considering this expectation and all. So all that thing, all the randomness in this whole calculation would be dependent upon the randomness in choosing the pivot. Okay, we are not using randomness anywhere else, just for choosing pivot. Okay, so every step, like even at the first step, we choose a pivot randomly, and then based on that pivot X, we basically break the list into two parts, S1 and S2, and then again we basically quick sort S1, and for that matter, we also kind of randomly pick a pivot and all. So this actually goes like recursive way, right? Is this okay? Hello, hello. Am I audible? Is the connection?
Sir. You're audible.
Yeah, I'm not actually understanding whether my connection is loud or not. Okay, so let's just without further ado, let's just go on to our like analysis. So the idea is like we will be picking pivots randomly, right? And we further assume that we pick pivots randomly. So randomly is kind of a vague word. So basically we will choose pivot uniformly and independently of each other. And as is the case, like choosing independent pivots kind of like simplifies our analysis. Yeah, I mean, there is no dependency and all between these pivots, and choosing the pivots independently kind of helps us with the ease of analysis. So basically, what is the case? So suppose S is our list and these elements are suppose x1, x2, dot dot xn. And basically, suppose we output the sorted list. So suppose that is y. So basically, we have y1, y2. So basically, this actually follows, right? And actually, like y is a like a permutation of s, basically, right? So this y is what we want to output, right? Now let us define a random variable. So let's just take another page. So S is our original list. This is input. The output would be like Y, which is like Y1, Y2, Y2 and Y3 and all yn. And like suppose let us first define a random variable xij, right? This is one if yi and yj are compared during the course of this algorithm, right? And zero otherwise. So during so this y1, yi and yj, they are basically some xk and xm, right? They're basically some permutations, right, of the original elements, and we are defining a random variable xij that basically says that basically counts how many pairs are compared. So it is one when element y and yj are compared during the course of the algorithm and zero otherwise, right? And note, we are basically counting the total number of comparisons, right? This n log n square, this is basically the number of comparisons. And we are like in RAM model, we are assuming that comparison can be done in order one time. So the time complexity would be the same as number of comparisons. So, so what is the total number of comparisons, right? Total number of comparison, let's define it as x, which is defined to be sum of xij. Now note there are two indices, so basically we have to like I can go from 1 to n minus 1 and j can go to I plus 1 to n, and this is the total number of comparisons, right? And this is we have to analyze. This is the main crux of the analysis. So we need to analyze what is x. Is this part okay till now? Hello, hello.
Sir, please tell again the total number of comparison.
Yeah, so basically all this order n square and order of n log n, this is basically the total number of comparisons, right? How many comparisons are we are actually doing, right? So suppose we are doing this thing, right? Like the case when we choose pivot as the first element, or the case when we choose pivot as a last element and all. So whatever we are actually computing is the number of comparisons, and we are assuming that in RAM model the time required to do the comparison is order one. So basically roughly the time complexity is the same as number of comparisons, right? Is this okay?
Yes, yes, this is what is.
So basically we just need to compute how many comparisons our randomized quicksort is doing. Now for that matter, I have defined a random variable xij which is 1 when element yi and yj are compared during the course of the algorithm and 0 otherwise, right? So what is the total number of comparisons? We will be summing over all ij, right? So x is the total number of comparisons, which is like the sum of this thing, right? Is this part okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so basically whatever we are going to do is basically we want to understand how x behaves, right? What is the value of x? So because of a linearity of expectation, so we can find the expected number of, so basically this is a randomized algorithm, so basically we want to find what is the expectation and how far it is going and all. So let's first compute expectation of this total number of comparisons. So it will be like e of x is like e of the sum of this thing, right? And because of like linearity of expectation, so it will be like e of xij, right? This is okay because of linearity of expectation, right? So basically we have to find basically e of xij, right? Now note xij is basically a 0 1 random variable, right? So expectation of the 0 1 random variable is nothing but the probability of that random variable equal to 1. So basically we can actually write it this way, that probability that xij equals to 1, right? This part is okay, right? Because xij is the indicator number, we can take only values 0 and 1. Is this okay, or shall I show you how it's done?
This is okay, sir.
Is it okay to everybody? If not, please, I mean, shout out. I mean, now, if this is okay, the whole analysis actually boils down to the fact that we just need to compute this probability, right? Now, now when are these two elements yii and yj are compared? So let's investigate it a bit. So when yi and yj are compared, so yi and yj are compared only in the case yi and yj are only compared when yi and yj both belongs to a list. Otherwise, suppose y and yj are in different lists, so a pivot will be chosen from this list, right? Suppose this is yi plus 1 and all, this is yj minus 1, right? So suppose, so for first simplicity, suppose they both belong to the same list, right? And then basically suppose we choose yi as pivot, right? And then it will be compared. Also for the case that when yj is pivot and compared, right? So if they both belong to the same list, say which I am like writing it as y superscript ij, they will be compared, right? And also suppose they are not in the same list, then there is no point of picking any pivot of them and then comparing, right? So the whole idea actually comes down to the fact that what is the probability. So given a list yij where both y and yj are present, what is the probability that any of them is chosen as pivot, right? Is this part okay? So basically you want to compute what is the probability that one of yi and yj are chosen as pivot. So do you understand this part? So y and yj are only compared when they both belong to the list, same list, as well as one of them is chosen as pivot, right? So let's write it down here. So there are two conditions, yi and yj same in same list, and one of them is pivot, right? This pivot is chosen according to this random picking of pivot and uniformly and independently whenever we are choosing pivot, right? So these are the two cases when yi and yj are compared. So these are the two cases when xij is 1. Is this part okay? This is the most critical part, and beyond that it is just a few algebraic manipulations, that's all. So is this part okay, or shall I like explain it a bit more? Hello, hello, anybody? Is the connection lost? Hello, is the connection lost?
Hello?
Yeah, okay. So does anybody have any doubt regarding this, because this is the most crucial part?
So why can't we take Yij a bit larger set, like where Yi and Yj are present and
No, it can be
in
more,
between,
right? It can be more, right?
like why Yi minus 1 is not present in Yij?
I'm sorry.
Like why the element Yi minus 1, index element I minus 1 is not present in Yij?
Because we are considering this yi's as sorted order. So I don't completely get your point.
Like uh, like if it is sorted order, then like why we are picking Yi or Yj as pivots? Like
No. So
before sorting it out, you have to pick the pivot, right? In order to sort the elements.
yeah, of course, yeah. If the sorting is done, then no. But we are actually analyzing it backwards, right? How many times? So given the sorted list, we are actually counting how many times this, in order to achieve this sorted list, how many times actually we have compared it, right?
Okay.
Because without getting any ordering kind of thing, it will be kind of difficult to analyze. So
So
suppose we have actually obtained a sorted list. Given x, we have actually obtained y, and on receiving y, we are kind of seeing it backwards, like how many comparisons on expectation is required to obtain this, right? And we are assuming for simplicity that all elements are unique. So basically there will be, so for some I and j there will be some sort of a list like this, like, so suppose if I suppose this list is contains also yi minus 1, right? If I understand your question correctly, if
yes, what if the list contains
suppose,
Yi?
yeah, suppose you contain actually yi minus 1 and yj and all, so sorry, this is yi, this is yi plus 1 and all. In that case, so you tell me that when yi and yj will be compared. If we choose like, we'll compare yi and yj only when we pick either of yi or yj as pivot, right? So if I
Yes.
pick yi as pivot, we have to compare everything there, But if I pick yj as pivot, we have to compare everything there and break it into sublist, right? Right?
Hmm.
So basically, having more elements actually immaterial. So basically, what I want to show is what is the probability of picking either of y and yj are as pivots. So there are two possible cases, right? Picking yi or yj. So the total number of favorable cases is 2. By what is the total number of cases? J minus I plus 1, right? So there are total number of how many ways can we pick? So give from this list, how many ways can we pick a pivot?
If the list changes, then the probability changes, right? Why it is immaterial?
No, we only compare y and yj when
But
either of
in the below list, the probability of YA being a pivot is bit lesser than YA or YJ being pivot in the second list is
yeah.
lesser than 2 by J minus I plus 1, right?
Yeah. Basically, we'll be summing over all these things, na? So all these cases will be compared actually. Whenever we are doing this sum, all these cases. So basically, you are saying like whenever I increase the size of the list, this probability will change, right?
Yes.
So whenever so whatever I am comparing this xij, this actually depends upon I and j. For every pair of I and j, we'll be comparing this xij, right?
Yes.
So in that case, this last list case will also be compared. Do you agree?
Like I minus 1 and YJ.
At one point of time, i's value would be I minus 1, right?
Yes.
And j's value would be like this j. In that case, it will be compared.
Hmm.
So we are not actually losing any comparisons. At any point, we are actually summing these two sum, right?
Yes. Hmm.
And these two sums are actually going from I equal to 1 to n minus 1 and j equal to I plus 1 to n, right?
Hmm.
And whenever you are doing this I minus 1, it actually is one of this 1 to I minus 1, 1 to n minus 1, right? So what is the case?
Uh,
This is
yes.
the case, right? I equal to 1 to n minus 1 and j equal to I plus 1 to n, right? Probability of xij equals to 1, right? So this I minus 1 says its value is 5, say, right? Is value is 6, suppose it will be considered here in the out in the leftmost sum. Suppose is value is say 6, right? So I minus 1 is 5. So in this outer summation, it will be considered, right?
Yes.
Similarly, this j also belongs to some number from 1 to n. This thing will also be considered in this second summation. So in that case, we will also be considering what is the probability, right? So we are not actually missing any case. We are not actually missing any comparison, right?
Yes.
So are you convinced, or are you just saying because I am saying?
I'll think about this again.
Yeah. So if we just have a kind of a
Yes.
thought, yeah. So basically, I am just considering this I and j instead of this I minus 1 because it's actually little bit easier to do manipulations with this
Yeah.
I and
Sure.
j, right? That's all the case. But we are actually summing over all these I and j, and basically all possible cases will be covered, right? So we are not actually undercounting any comparison. Okay.
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So basically, like what is the happening, like, so basically this e of x is basically the sum probability of xij equals to 1, right? And as we have computed, this is like 2 by j minus I plus 1, right? Now, and there is a little bit of manipulations and all, but nothing. So basically we can actually represent like k as j minus I plus 1 and change it to a bit, and I'm not doing all these parts, so it will be some sort of 2 by k where like I equal to 1 to n minus 1 and like k equal k would be 2 to n minus I plus 1, I think. Yeah, n minus I plus 1. And then if you kind of switch this summation and all, it actually boils down to something like 2n plus 2 into sum of 1 by k equal to 1 to n, and like minus 4n. So as it turns out, the sum of 1 by k equal to 1 to n is called harmonic number hn, and it is kind of theta of log n, right? I mean, it should be log n, but we are like, yeah, it should be log n kind of thing. So, and but it's up to constant, they are similar to base 2, so it will be some sort of theta of n log n. Okay, so the expected number of comparisons is like, it will be some sort of like 2n log n plus some theta of n, and since n log n is the expectations, so basically you understand that if there exists something on expectation, so there exists one with that property, right? There exists some choice of random pivots such that we obtain a algorithm whose complexity is like n log n, right? So we have a quick sort with number of comparisons is like n log n, right? Right, so this is the kind of idea. So yeah, so this is the analysis of when we are doing this. This is the analysis when the algorithm is actually random, so there is randomness involved in this algorithm, so we are choosing the pivot as randomly. But a similar kind of analysis also goes the other way around when the algorithm is deterministic, but we actually apply a random permutation on the input and then analyze. They are actually almost same. So yeah, so just wait for a couple of minutes to digest. I mean, this might be a little bit non-trivial, at least if you see it for the first time. So if you somehow feels kind of pretty difficult, or if you kind somehow feel overwhelming, and then there is no need to worry. I mean it's pretty common to kind of feel intimidated when you see this proof first time. So it's perfectly okay, but the idea is like, I hope you understand a broad idea, like how are we analyzing randomized quicksort and where is the randomness involved. And once we figure out this, so as it normally the case for any kind of randomized algorithm, this defining a very suitable random variable actually does all the work almost. So here this random variable is like xij when we are doing one, when yi and yj are compared and zero otherwise. So a suitable choice of random variable actually does half the work. And once you kind of understand that this is the way we will be picking these random variables, the rest of the algorithm, like except the fact that when yi and yj will be compared, Otherwise, it's kind of not very difficult. Now, just wait for a couple of minutes, and so if you want me to go back and forth to understand this proof, I mean, it's covering already couple of pages. So please tell me which page I will go, which page I should go to, whether you understand it completely. I mean, just feel free to talk. I mean, there is no problem. I mean, there is enough time, and we can hopefully clear everybody's doubt.
Sir, can you explain the probability calculation?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So the idea is like the way we have defined these random variables is like when two elements are compared. So basically, we will be counting total number of comparisons, and that is kind of give us the complexity, time complexity, right? So basically, this is kind of this random variable, right? And we are actually summing over this random variable, and we are kind of finding its expectation, right? And so by linearity of expectation, this actually comes down to this part. And since xij is a 0 1 random variable, I indicate a random variable, it's
So this thing is clear. How are you calculating probability x ij equals to 1?
yeah
That
yeah
explain.
yeah so when xij are when xij is 1, xij is 1 when yi and yj are compared. So let us define a list yij, superscript ij, with the elements yi till yj, right? And in this sublist, note yi and yj will be compared only when either of them is chosen as pivot. So when yi is chosen as pivot, we'll be comparing yi to all elements in this list, right? So in that case, I'll compare yi to yj. Similarly, when yj is a pivot, we'll also compare every elements to yj, and in that case, we'll actually compare it yi, right? Now,
Okay, that is why 2 is coming. Okay.
now suppose I pick something else as pivot, yi minus yi plus 1, right? Suppose this is the pivot. In that case, I'll be comparing yi plus 1 to everything, right? In that case, yi and yj are not compared, at least in this round, right? I mean, it may compare among themselves under a list, under a sublist and all, but not in this yij list, right? So yi and yj are only compared when either of them is chosen as pivot. And since we are choosing pivots as randomly, so total number of elements here is j minus I plus 1 in this list, right? Right, total number of elements is j minus I plus 1, and there are two favorable cases when either yi or yj is chosen as pivot. So there are two is coming because of this. This is the total number of elements. So the probability that yij xij is 1, so yi and yj are compared, is 2 by j minus 1, and that is why I'm like summing over all here. So this is what is happening. So basically, we're actually substituting xij is 1 as 2 by j minus 1, and then a bit of calculations and all, and it actually turns out to be expectation of x is ordered n log. Does that clear your doubt?
Yes, I got.
Yeah. So does anybody have any other doubt? Hello. Hello. Hello, does anybody have any other doubt? Otherwise, I'll move forward to the next thing.
Yeah, sure, sir. Move on.
No, so is it okay to everybody, or? So what sorts are actually covered till now? So which all sorting algorithms have been covered till now? Hello. Somebody please volunteer to say. I mean,
Bubble sort, insertion sort, selection sort, and merge sort,
okay.
and counting sort,
Okay. So basically,
and quick sort. Quick sort also.
yeah, yeah, of course. Yes, covered. So basically, all these quick sort and this bubble sort, insertion sort, all these sorts are like comparison based sorting, right? And we already know that the lower bound of comparison based sorting is like order of n log n. Right? So a natural question is like, can we do better when we are not actually doing comparison based sorting? Right? So a common example is something called bucket sort, and that is something will cover now. It is also a randomized kind of idea, and will show that the expected running time is order n, but with some additional considerations, like having a order n algorithm is too good to be true, right? So obviously there are some catches, and like here basically the catch is like we'll be taking assumptions that all the elements of the list, so all the elements of input are kind of bounded. So like all the elements are kind of belonging from like 0 to say 0 to 2 to the power k for some k, right? So the value of the elements are kind of bounded, right? And suppose the total number of inputs, so the total number of inputs is like n, and we're assuming for simplicity like n is some power of 2. So based on this, like we can kind of guess like k is greater than equal to n, this additional condition, right? These are kind of like this our assumptions, right? Yeah. So note, whatever analysis that we have covered till now in quicksort, the algorithm itself, the version that we have seen, the algorithm itself was random. There is randomness in the algorithm, but here the randomness is over input, right? But the algorithm is completely deterministic. So whenever we study this kind of randomized algorithm and all, so I think it is crucial to remember from where is this randomness coming. Whenever we are doing this expectation and all, so over what we are kind of computing the expectation, right? So that part is kind of crucial. So the idea is very simple. So the idea is kind of a ball and beans argument. So basically the idea is like we have couple of beans, in that case buckets, right? So some buckets are there, say bucket 1, bucket 2, some sort of thing like that. right? And right, so basically the inputs will be coming here. Say X is the set of inputs, say like x1, x2, say xn. And upon seeing this x1, say first we see x1, and we'll be putting them in one of these buckets. And how are we going to put them into buckets? So basically, like we'll see the, say, so there are a couple of ways. So basically we see the binary representation of x, right? Say binary of x1, right? So suppose, for example, say suppose we are doing like n equal to 2 to the power 10, right? And like, so say bucket 3 will be considering all the elements whose first some number of digits will be like matching with 1 with 3, right? Say suppose like the elements that will be covering in bucket 3 would be this kind of pattern, right? At 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So the elements that will be put in the bucket, right, are kind of following this kind of pattern, right? The inputs are coming random, and we'll be seeing this sort of pattern and put those elements into that bucket. And also see, so how we are putting these elements into this bucket is immaterial. I mean, that depends upon this implementation issue. So you may come up with a better way of putting the elements into bucket, and that is perfectly fine, right? So given all these set x, we put them into buckets, right? Based on some criteria, right? Now we are assuming that this seeing this its binary pattern and all can be done in order one time. Like maybe this is a oversimplification, but let's for assume that we can actually seeing an element x1 and deciding which bucket to put it into, we can decide that into order one time, right? So basically total time in order to put these elements into this bucket is like order n, right? Is that okay? Hello, right? So basically buckets are, I mean, if you write it this way, so there are two steps. Step one is like put elements into buckets, right, based on some criteria. Now note, we are actually assuming the input is random. So it is highly unlikely that all elements will belong to a particular bucket, right? Since input are random, we can somehow hope that the elements will be distributed among these buckets kind of uniformly. Maybe not exactly, but it is highly improbable that all the elements are belong to the in a single bucket, right? Is this okay? Is this assumption okay? Hello, hello.
Yes, yes.
And once we have performed this first step, so we have put all these elements in this bucket and all, and then given a single bucket, and we can assume that number of elements in a single bucket is roughly not much, Then inside this bucket, we'll be sorting the elements using some comparison based sorting, like say bubble sort or insertion sort, something like that. Right? So there are two steps. So first of all, the input is randomized, the algorithm is deterministic. So whenever the elements are coming, we are kind of putting them into buckets based on some criteria. And since the input is random, we can somehow hope that it will not be the case that large number of inputs are kind of clustered into a single bucket, right? So roughly the total number of elements in each bucket will be kind of same. And individually in the second step, we sort each bucket, the elements inside bucket, using a comparison based sort like bubble sort or insertion sort, right? So basically, this step, putting these elements into this step, takes order n time, right? And similarly, as we will show, so the total number of amount of time taken in this step is also order n. So in total, it will be like order n plus order n, it will be order n, like so. We'll show time in step 2 is order n. Up till, is this okay? So do you all agree that if we can somehow prove that time taken in step 2 is order n, expected time, I'd rather say expected time, then the total running time of these bucket sort would be order n. Do you all agree to this? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
So we have n elements and n buckets, b1 to bn, and the inputs are randomized, and we put them inside this bucket, like seeing some criteria and all. So basically, before directly jumping into this analysis, let us first do a slight small observation. So total number of elements is like n, right? And total number of buckets is also n. So what is the probability appears in a bucket? So what is the probability that we are assuming the inputs are like uniformly distributed, and given this condition that inputs are uniformly distributed, now I ask this question: what is the probability that an element say xi belongs to say bucket n? What is the probability of that? It's 1 by n, right? I mean, there is a single element and there are n choices, so it is 1 by n, right? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Right? So basically, let us consider a random experiment. Say we are considering this bucket bi, right? And suppose, now, so what is happening? So let's just go a little bit and introspect. So basically, elements are coming and we are putting them inside some bucket. And instead of considering all buckets, let's just see what happens to bucket I, right? Now let us assume that whenever we are seeing this input, some elements will be put into bucket bi, right? Now suppose putting an element into this bucket bi is considered success, right? So the experiment is like this. It's a random experiment. What is a random experiment? An element is put into bi. In bucket I, right? And what is the probability of that? Anybody? So what is the probability? Suppose we define a random experiment that an element is put inside bucket I and we'll call that a success. And all other cases, putting the element outside bucket bi will be considered a failure. So what is the probability of this event? What is the probability of the fact that a particular element will belong to bucket bi? Anybody? Hello? Does anybody understanding anything, or just I am just speaking only to myself? How many people are there? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir. I was just thinking about it.
Yeah, so what is the probability that given an element, say xi, what is the probability that, say x, what is the probability that it will belong to bucket vi, given the fact that inputs are uniformly distributed? So there is a single element x, right? And there are n choices, right?
Yes, sir.
And the inputs are distributed uniformly, right? So what is the probability of that element going to bucket vi?
It will be 1 by n.
Yeah, as I have already done this before, it will be 1 by n. So this is done here. So what is this random? So we are considering, so what is the effect of this random experiment? So whenever a element is put into bucket bi, we are considering it success. And whenever it is not the case, then we are considering it failure. So this is nothing but a binomial distribution. So total number of events would be n, and what is the probability of success? It is 1 by n, right? So basically we have this binomial n elements with probability 1 by n, right? Bin np kind of thing, right? Now we want to find how much time does it take for step 2. Right? So suppose xj is the number of elements in bucket j, right? So now in the second step, we are basically kind of doing a brute force sorting, like bubble sort or insertion sort. So roughly it will take, the total number of comparisons would be kind of x square, right? Some c into x square, right? Right? Hello? Some c into xj square, right? Is this okay? Hello?
Okay.
So what is the total number of comparisons here? Basically we will be summing over all buckets, right? So basically we are summing over all xj square, c into xj square. So let's call this x, right? So you'll be basically finding the expected value of x, right? What is the expected value of x? It will be like e of c of xj square, where j basically the buckets. So by linearity of expectation, it will be like e of c of your xj square. Now recall, what is the distribution of x? So what is the distribution of number of elements in a particular bucket? So this is nothing but this bin of n comma 1 by n, right? This is thing that I have covered here, right? So the random experiment would be success when an element is put into bucket I and failure otherwise. So what is the probability of success? What is the p for this binomial np? So p would be 1 by n, right? And total number of elements that we put is actually n. So it will be like distributed over binomial of n comma 1 by n. And for this, if we can actually do a little bit of calculations and all, so e of xj square would be kind of n into n minus 1. So I've done this, so I'm not actually doing this, but please try to do it yourself, like by defining it as expectation and all. And if you cannot finish it, then maybe we'll have a look at it in the next time. So it will be some sort of this, and then like expectation of x would be like this is sum over this, so it will be like order n. So basically this is nothing but less than 2. So basically it will be like c into 2, so it will be like 2cn kind of thing, so it will be order n. So the total number of comparisons, in fact total number of time for bucket sort would be order n. Maybe this is a bit too much, so if you are not understanding it, just I mean this tell me which part shall I repeat, or is it the case that everybody understood everything? I mean that would be too good to be true. I mean, but nonetheless it can happen. Yeah. Hello, is there any doubt? Yeah, there are some. Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah, it's okay.
So is it okay to everybody, like how we are doing this bucket sort and how we are actually analyzing it? So
No, sir, how did you get that xj square, the next step?
yeah.
That one.
So yeah, so xj is, if you see this, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So xj is the total number of elements in bucket j, right? And so one in the step 2, what is happening? So we have in the step 1 we have put all these elements into buckets, right? And in
Yeah.
step 2, inside a bucket, we are actually doing a brute force sorting, say like bubble sort or insertion sort. So and bubble sort or insertion sort, so given an n element input, it takes some sort of order n square, right?
Yeah.
So inside a bucket, if like number of elements is like xj, it will be taking some order of xj square, right?
Yes, sir.
So it will be some cxj square for some c, right?
Yeah, I got it.
So total number of comparisons would be sorry.
Sigma of cxj square.
So it will be like this sum over. Oh, so this will be like this thing, right? Right? And then basically we are manipulating and all. So basically this cxj square, and as we have seen, this xj actually follow a binomial distribution where the number of elements is n and the probability of an element going into that bucket is 1 by n. So for that case, actually E of xj squared. So if we like expand this out expectation and all and calculate it and like kind of algebraically manipulate it, it will actually come out to be this. And which is actually, if we can do a little bit of like this is n square by n square, so this will be 1 minus n by n square plus n square, so it will be less than 2. So given the fact that this is less than 2, right, and we are basically summing j equal to 1 to n, there is some sort of 2cn, so for constant c it is order n, right? So basically you have a sorting algorithm that actually outperforms any so-called comparison based sorting, although here in between we are actually using a comparison based sorting, right? Bubble sort or insertion sort or something like that in the second step. But what is the catch here? The catch here is inputs are kind of bounded, right? So inputs are over bounded and we are taking number of buckets as similar number of as inputs, right? So it's kind of in a sense like it takes much space, as well as we are assuming upper bound over inputs. And in some cases, although we can do this kind of thing, but I mean, assuming the bound of input is kind of may not be the right thing to do, right? So we learned a new sorting algorithm today. And just if you have any doubt, just call me. Just like say it to me right now. Yeah. You can also post it in the classroom, but yeah, I think it would be better if you have any doubt and just shout it out.
Sir, will we be solving the problem set problems?
So yeah, it's already 1.5 hours. I actually thought of covering it a bit quickly. So if you have any doubt, you can just say. I mean, although we won't be solving all these problem sets exhaustively, but we can certainly give you some.
Yeah, some like discussions and ideas so that you can try it out.
Yeah,
as well.
the problem set, not the assignment.
Oh, no, not the assignment, sir. The problem set. Yeah.
And the assignment is due on, I think, 10th.
Monday. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so will we have the problem set discussion on Monday? Then?
Assignment discussion.
No. Problem set discussion.
Actually, as I think Saurabh actually told me, today possibly not everybody can join, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So today is mostly based on CRS or MTech, right?
No, actually today we have a mix set. So even like we are CRS too, but like half of us are here today. So I think we'll come on Monday.
So there are two groups of CRS as well.
No. Actually, CRS was, I think sir meant it was supposed to be Monday evening for us, but we came as well just so that we could see what is happening.
Oh, okay. Actually,
Yeah.
in that case, I also have to cover these two parts on Monday as well.
Oh, so Monday's session will be a repetition, sir?
Yeah, I mean, we can discuss something more, but since not everybody is coming and this quick sort and bucket sort is kind of like, it's better to explain it instead of giving people as reading solution kind of thing. We actually have to cover it again on Monday. And if time permits, maybe we'll go into the problem set.
Sir.
So is there anybody from MTech CS from whom this was like originally meant to be? I mean, there is no problem in
Yeah,
everything. Yeah.
I'm from MTechCS, but I'm the only person I'm thinking here.
So was it supposed to be the MTech CS in this slot?
No, actually, it was not discussed. So, I mean,
Yes, sir.
No. So there is no issue of attending people. So anybody can attend any session. I mean, that is not a criteria. I mean, I'm just curious. Does a section of people also have classes now and all?
no, I think, no, we don't have any classes.
Okay. Yeah. So if you have any doubts regarding problem set, maybe yeah, I certainly won't like give you a complete solution, but yeah, I can certainly like explain tidbits of it and explain the ideas. So also please recall, like, assignment submission is Monday, and I mean, don't be late and like say like, yeah, just submit it in the due time. Okay.
So Monday will be repetition, right?
Not exactly. That depends upon how. So whatever people are will be asking, but we'll certainly cover these two, and then
Sir, actually, I think like okay, we'll see on Monday who all will come. But if it so happens that people who came today will come on Monday as well, and no new students are there, can we discuss the problem set then? If it happens, like there's a small chance, but if it happens,
the probability of that happening is pretty low. I am excluding that. I am excluding that thing from consideration. Yeah, just I think how many people came. I think it was like 18 participants at the beginning. So maybe I myself and I think Chandrima was there. So instead there will be 16 people, and now there are 12 except me. So it's like 11 now. It's a large class, so the probability of that happening is pretty low. But anybody can join. I mean, yeah. And if you have doubt, just ask now. I mean, why wait for Monday?
no, the whole problem sets it. Okay, can we discuss now?
Yeah. I can give you hints, but not explanations. Not full solution. I can give you hints and ideas and all, but yeah, I certainly won't be giving you a full detailed solution, right? I mean,
Yeah. No, ideas like to start somewhere or like just discussions that would do.
yeah, sure, yeah. So is there any doubt regarding problem set 2? Problem set, I think it is first problem set. Is there any doubt regarding problems on problem sets? Anybody? I mean, some people have left. That's okay, but anybody who is present here and all. Yeah, there are 11 people other than me. So if you have any doubt, just I mean, feel free to ask. Yeah. And if nobody has any doubt regarding the material that I have covered till now, as well as on the problem set, we'll end this session. But if you have any doubt, let's not postpone it for Monday and all. Instead, just let's try to figure it out now. So just a question. So there is nobody in the hostel, right? The hostel is empty, right? ISI hostel is empty, right?
Yes, sir. As far as we know, most of us vacated it like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, because the situation is pretty bad.
Yeah, it's quite bad right now.
It's pretty apocalyptic. Yeah. So if you have if you have any doubt even for the material that has been covered in the class, I mean, you can ask me. I mean, there is no problem in like. I mean, there is no condition that like it has to be from problem set and all. I mean, you can ask over the materials that has been covered as well. And yeah, and also I think, I mean, it's better to clear doubts today instead of postponing it to Monday. First of all, there are, I think, 11 students. Someone has already left. Okay, so we are kind of, other than me, we are 10. So first of all, just like honestly say to me, like, is it, so have you people understood the two things that I have covered today? Like, say honestly, I mean, yeah, so there is no harm in saying, like, maybe we can go over it again together and all. Just, yeah, there is no harm in, like, just say honestly. I mean, there is no like there is no any pressure kind of thing, like. So have you understood the two things that I've covered today? So I'm sorry, I won't be calling according to your name, but just please, like, please say it loud. I mean,
It's fine, but I mean,
this is,
with
yeah,
with what you've thought, I think we've got insights about it, and if we revise it once more, we'll get it.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
the thing is, these are not a part of the exams, right?
yeah. These are part of exam.
But sir said that I think he mentioned that randomize, and then I think he short said that they won't be in the exam.
Oh, okay. So okay. I didn't talk to Saurabh, but yeah, I'll 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 talk to him. But I think it's not very difficult, and if you like, it's better to understand it now, because this randomized algorithm is kind of like ubiquitous, like everybody does it, like, and it's kind of a
Yeah,
good idea. And these are kind of the algorithms that are actually like quick sort, like, for example, like the quick sort. So if you kind of work on a large set of inputs and run different kind of sorting algorithms based on the same input, like say heap sort, merge sort, bubble sort, insertion sort, as well as quick sort, as the name suggests, I mean, if you take a sufficiently large input size, I mean, quick sort will outperform anybody, any sorting algorithm. I mean, although this is n log n, and also like heap sort is n log n, also merge sort is n log n. So in average case, the constant hidden under like the order notation is small for quick sort. And if you like run an algorithm on a large set over these different sorting algorithms, you can see it like regarding your like time time taken to complete it, right? So I think in that case, quicksort is very much used even in practice. So in general, in if you work in a say software company and all, so basically it will be hardly the case that no anybody will write a quicksort algorithm and all. So there is already libraries and all. But unless you understand these things very clearly, I mean, new things won't be like defined. So whatever new problems you have to solve, like this won't be solved beforehand. So basically you have to understand some ideas and all and use that, right? So I think it's better to put these new techniques into an arsenal even if it is not in exam. I mean, that's my point of view.
yeah, okay.
But although, yeah, number of people is strictly decreasing, so I think,
Sorry, is all these are all these derivations also in are not in syllabus, right?
yeah, I think I have to check it with sort of, I think. So if nobody has any question, I mean, we can like end this. But yeah. Okay, does anybody have any other question? Okay, then see you. Yeah, let's just end this session. Okay, and like stay safe, whatever happens. Yeah. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm just ending this session.